Hello and welcome to this video. This is coverage of round 7 of the candidates tournament currently held in Moscow. This round 7 was played yesterday and I'm now getting around to cover that. We have 4 games as usual and we're going to start with the game Giri Anand in a situation where Giri is on 50%. He has played 6 draws. And Aronian in the current situation is on +1. So he's rather comfortable, I guess, with his position, still very much in contention. So Giri should try something. He goes for a d4 opening. And we get a Queen's Gambit declined with knight bd7. This move has gained some momentum recently. One idea is that, and we've seen that in the event earlier also by Vichy, I think, against Aronian. One idea is that the nowadays popular bishop f4 setups against bishop e7, this is the main move nowadays, can be answered with the capture. And this led to interesting play in the mentioned Aronian Anand game. Giri, however, goes with queen c2. This is a rare move, but an interesting move. Black now has to decide what to do. He can invite various transpositions at that point. For example, black could play a bishop e7 now, just a normal looking move, after which white, for example, could go for some Carlsbad structure, the Queen's Gambit decline exchange structure. Many things possible. Anand goes for an active possibility. He goes bishop b4. So mixing Queen's Gambit and Nimzo-Indian themes here. a3 by Giri.
Check.
He took on c3 and played castle. So this is a position that easily could have come from a queen c2 Nimzo. It would be a completely mainline theoretical position without those two moves inserted. It makes a difference, but the themes are very similar. Bishop g5, h6, and now Anand goes with c5. This is an interesting move. He tries to actually open up the position even though Giri has got the bishop pair. Why? Because he's better developed. Black has castled already. He wants to make his development advantage count. We've discussed something earlier in the event. I think that was during the game Svidler Aronian, where also Aronian went for an opening of the position early on, even though the opponent had the bishop pair. So c5 opens up the position. Giri goes e3, trying to develop his bishop on f1, and now Anand takes on d4. So what should white do now? If white recaptures with the pawn, then he probably will play an IQP position after a further capture on c4. Black can take immediately, or he can play b6. We can look at the capture if we start with that. And now black goes maybe b6, or a6 is also a move. The idea is to play a quick bishop b7, rook c8. And note how good black's development is. He's very quick and his pieces are all okay. They all fulfill a useful role. Giri plays differently. He takes with the queen. This is probably the more logical move. It does not hamper the pawn structure at all. Rook e8 played by Anand. And now we come to the key position of this game very early on. I absolutely cannot figure out what Giri did next. I think he said afterwards that he feared that after c takes d5, e5, Anand would have some interesting preparation going on, but well, that's all nice and good, but you're not going to qualify for a World Championship match with 14 draws. So if you have white against someone who's on +1 and they have given you the bishop pair to play with, you should somehow continue this game. I mean, the thing is, what he did is he took on f6, and after that, this is so utterly unambitious. You might as well make a draw right away. So why not take e5 and now some move? I mean, it really doesn't matter where. You just have to continue here. even if you go all the way back to d1, I really don't see why this should be a draw. Like queen a5 maybe, queen d2, and well, this is a position that white can certainly play. I'm not claiming he's a lot better or anything, but I mean, you have to win games at one point, so by just trading off here like this and play this position, you're not going to qualify for any World Championship match. Yeah, so okay, we basically can forget the rest. This is so equal that it doesn't need a 2780 player like Anand to make the draw. It would, yeah, it's very easy to make a draw here with black. You just play normal stuff and get the draw. So really very unambitious to take on f6 and a bit mysterious, because I totally understand being paying some respect to the opponent's preparation. If you are in a somewhat sharp position, this can be a wise decision sometimes to just kind of dodge a challenge and say, okay, you probably have something in store there. Maybe let's be a little bit conservative. That's all good and probably good tournament strategy, but what exactly is the big danger here? Yeah. Anyway, let's go to the next game. What's the next game to cover? The order is actually kind of interesting to check. I think I'll go with Karjakin and Aronian, our two co-leaders going at it. Okay, Karjakin, knight f3 and g3. Yeah, this is a clear sign that he does not want to play a long e4, e5 theoretical line. We get this here. Aronian is very much sticking to this setup against the King's Indian attack or King's fianchetto. The white side, he plays this very classical setup: d5, knight f6, e6, bishop e7, basically anticipating that white goes for some kind of Catalan, for example, like d4, castles, c4, takes, and we're in the main line Catalan by transposition. This is something that most players probably now would go for. Karjakin, however, has a different idea. He plays the move d3, castles, and knight bd2, just playing King's Indian attack style, angling for the move e4. Interesting choice. This is not an opening that is supposed to give white a theoretical advantage, but what opening actually does, where black is not doing something stupid. So essentially it means white is going for a game with all the pieces on the board, probably something that could heat up a little bit later. So a5 by Aronian. Surprising and very rare move, but not a bad move. He's known for being original, or an original player, and in this position Aronian has not gone for the main move in the past, which is c5. Yeah, c5 is the main move, then e4, knight c6, e5, this kind of thing. In fact, what he has played mostly is knight to c6, which is it's a bit strange looking, but it has a point. After white going e4, Aronian played this a couple of times, and then e5. And well, there is some logic to that, yeah? I mean, we have a completely symmetrical central pawn formation there with e4 and e5 and the d file open, but white has a bishop on g2, which is probably not so great. But on the other hand, the knight on c6 is also not ideally placed. Still, it's hard to believe that black should be in any big danger here. This, for example, was played in a game between the two players, Karjakin and Aronian, in Zurich last year. But now a5. Yeah, that's a weird looking move. It gains space on the queen side. e4, a4. Yeah, it gains space on the queen side and quite often actually fits into black's general plan. For example, now after a3 is played by Karjakin, he was probably a little bit afraid that a3 would happen, so a3 makes probably sense. Yeah, here white's probably most obvious looking move is the move e5. After e5, knight d7, knight to f1. We get a very typical position from this King's Indian attack setup. b5, bishop f4, this kind of thing, or maybe h4 first. And this is a transposition to a main line that usually starts with black in this position going c5 and only a5 later. Very sharp position with chances for both sides. White has got these ideas like bishop f4, knight comes up, knight g5, queen h5, playing on the king side, while black has made already huge progress on the queen side. Very sharp stuff. In the game, h4 was played by Karjakin. This is probably not a great decision because the center is not yet closed, not yet clarified, the central position, and Aronian reacts well. I think he takes on e4. After d takes e4, he can go e5 or b5. Both seem very much playable. That could also lead to sharp play after e5. For example, this is a very tense, interesting position. White might even have ideas like that. I think that d takes was a little bit more in the spirit of the position. Karjakin took with the knight and now decided to take with the rook. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that decision because the main idea, it seems, was to have options like that, but they never really materialize. We will see. b5 happens. And now knight g5. And I don't think that this is a particularly successful idea. That was quite clearly the idea of h4. But we see that after rook a6, yeah, covering the knight and getting out of that sensitive diagonal, queen h5, black just goes h6, and this is not leading to much. Black is not really trying to take on g5 technically. I mean, if white plays some move, I don't know, c3 for example, then taking is not really on, yeah? As rook h4 is a deadly threat here. But still, it's hard to believe that white can keep the knight there forever. Yeah, if black plays a normal move, let's say bishop to d7, this is all not very successful. I mean, white can try stuff like that, but there is knight e5. And again, that shouldn't lead to much. Yeah, he decided to retreat right away. It's probably the right decision. Yeah, and now we come to the problem. f5 is the thing. The rook gets attacked. It cannot go to g4. It essentially has to go back. Yeah, and here Aronian, I think, missed the chance, and he also stated that in the press conference himself, so I'm basically just copying what he said. Bishop f6 now was a good move. The point is to take control over the e5 square. And this is very important. Black has more space here and some ideas to improve. A very direct idea would be bishop d7, e8, winning the queen. Okay, white will probably move the knight, but it doesn't really look like a good position for white. Yeah? Also, no, this is probably necessary to ever move the c1 bishop. Yeah, instead he played bishop to d7, and now Karjakin displays his defensive qualities. He goes knight e5. That's a good move. White has less space, wants to trade. The typical procedure. And yeah, this is what happened. The worst now is definitely over for white. Rook b1 is a good move, allowing the bishop to move. This was what Aronian had expected in a way to happen, and then after b4 he has a good position. But rook b1 is stronger. It does not weaken the queen side at all, and yeah, now it's difficult for black to make any headway. He decided to play in the most direct way with f4, but this didn't lead to much. We had those trades, and the queen took on c5, keeping an eye on that pawn still. Yeah, I mean, it looks a little bit loose for white here, the king side, but the bishop on g2 is doing a very good job. And there is really nothing terrible happening. Yeah, queen there on g3 is also good. And counterplay. The d7 is attacked. The rook on a6 is a little bit loose.
Check.
Yeah, this forces the queen trade.
Check.
Yeah, here they agree to a draw. We have got equal material and no particular weaknesses on either side that would promise something to play for. So a draw between the two tournament leaders. It's, I think, a slight disappointment maybe for Aronian, who had or could have gotten a very nice position out of the opening with bishop to f6, but it's an opportunity that he did not take. Very important in this event. You have to grab those opportunities. If he would have won that game, that would have made, I think, a huge impact on the tournament. But as it was a draw. Again, well defended by Karjakin. The next game I want to look at is Svidler Caruana. A game between two players who need a win at some point. Svidler is on -1 after having lost to Anand, and Caruana has drawn all of his games. However, his games were a lot more exciting than Giri's 6 draws. Caruana, for example, was completely winning against Topalov but couldn't convert. And there were some other adventures in his games. Okay, we get an English opening again. Svidler is really going with c4 in this event. c5, all symmetrical, and now g3. Yeah, here white has two main options. He can go g3 and d4. g3 is putting a higher priority on the development of the king side. d4 is a bit sharper because it gives black, after the opening of the center, a little bit more options. After g3, you're basically saying, okay, after g6, I'm going to play d4 when I know that you fianchetto. Or black has the option of doing something entirely different. This is what he goes for in the game. Caruana plays d5 himself in an ambitious way of playing, but also very well respected. Takes, bishop g2. Yeah, in this position, black has two main moves. He has g6, as played in the game, or he has the move knight to c7. I'm actually slightly surprised that Caruana went g6. It's not bad at all, no, not at all, but I think that knight c7 is something that he has played in earlier events, and also successfully. The typical idea is to set up a Roxy bind here with colors reversed, and this is something that's also quite ambitious, I mean, without being overly risky. So it would have perfectly fit his tournament situation to try to get to a somewhat interesting game also with black. Not that this is uninteresting, but knight c75 is more principled maybe. Okay, g6. And Svidler has something in store against that. Knight g5. Interesting. Yeah, just attacks this knight on d5. Yeah, what is black supposed to do? He does not really want to move the knight away. Yeah, something like, let's say, knight to b6 is not really helping that much. The knight is not well positioned here, and after something like d3 and a later bishop e3, Yeah, like this. This could become vulnerable. Also after knight e4. Yeah, and do you want to go to c7? It's almost the same story. e6 was played. But that move weakens the dark squares quite a bit. d3. Bishop to g7. And knight g to e4. Very interesting. The knight there going via g5 to e4. Yeah, black has to think about that c5 pawn later, but not right now as there's so much pressure on c3. So he can castle first. He doesn't have to play b6 or anything like that. Yeah, and now we come to Svidler's idea. He goes with h4. And this makes an awful lot of sense in this position. White has not castled yet. Therefore h4 is supported by the rook. And black has moved his knight away from the king side. So there is no knight on f6 that could naturally defend against the h4, h5 push. Not a very nice position for black to defend now. Not that he's in big issues, in big trouble. It shouldn't be like that. Black's play was completely logical up to that point, but still, getting attacked like that is no fun. It's actually not clear what the best defense is. You could argue that h5 is the principled way to just put an end to this, but don't underestimate White's chances here. He has a couple of interesting ideas. He can play bishop to g5 as a more conservative move, attacking the queen, and essentially provoking the move f6 or provoking a queen move. And what exactly is your queen move in this position? If you go, I don't know, to b6, something like queen d2, later bishop h6, looks rather comfortable. Also, this could be an option, just winning this pawn. Or f6. But is that looking very attractive to you? Nah, also not, right? And White has even more, more aggressive ways. He can try this move g4. I mean, it looks very, very caveman style, but don't underestimate this. This is getting dangerous. Yeah, I mean, if black takes, for example, rook takes, that's a very early opening of the king, and white is not taking long to get castled long, maybe. I know it looks very wacky, but it is not completely out of the picture. Caruana went with b6, and it seems that the ensuing attack is really dangerous. What else? h6 was an idea, but it's not quite clear if it helps. Even the computer, and I mean, I know that modern engines are not as materialistic as they were some time ago, but even the computer, like Stockfish, just wants to give the exchange here.
Check.
This is Stockfish's main line, and it gives White a full compensation here for the exchange, which is not so surprising. Yeah, White has the bishop pair, very nice active bishops on d2, g2. The knight is strong here, can sometimes go back, and black's king position is severely weakened here on the dark squares. Definitely compensation. It's tough for black, it's really tough. Not quite sure what black's best setup was. He went b6, as mentioned, and now h5. That was the point. Bishop b7. Now takes, and pawn takes. Yeah, in the press conference, Svidler said that f takes was maybe better. A move that looks extremely ugly because of that situation of the knight here. The knight is such a nice piece on e4. But it seems that this setup at least wasn't as dangerous for the black king. In the game, after bishop h6, it seems that black is already in some trouble. I mean, at least it gets very, very tough. In the game, knight takes c3 was played. Let us have a look if black captures. This was an alternative. Rook takes and maybe king to g7. Yeah, the problem is the rook does not have to retreat. There is queen to d2. And after possible rook h8, rook takes, queen takes, long castles, rook h1 will be decisive. It's really, really bad for black. This simple approach does not work. So what is black supposed to do? He tried the move knight takes c3, but that also doesn't solve his problems. There are a couple of tries that the engine tries to make work, but it ultimately is always dangerous. This is what the computer also wants to try. But queen d2 and long castles is very simple to play, and also this, what the computer wants to do, is probably not ultimately satisfactory. Not sure where the rook wants to go. All squares make some sense. Yeah, white also has g4 as an opportunity. Yeah, I think white always retains some pressure. Yeah, this has happened in the game. Taking, and now the move f5. And after that, white probably has a very, very big advantage. As I said, difficult to give him advice. It's just a very dangerous position. Queen c1 now by Svidler. He just lets this knight hang on e4. But he crashes through on the h file. Takes.
Check.
Check. King to f6. And now d takes e4. That was very, very strong play. Yeah, white is a piece down, but his attack is very, very strong. He has a couple of ideas. The main idea at the moment is to move e5, opening up the diagonal and harassing the black king. Caruana now played rook to h8, which is probably the best defense.
Check.
e5 check and king to f7. We have to give Caruana credit now for the game from here. He got into trouble out of that opening, probably also against something that Svidler has prepared at home. But now Caruana plays absolutely perfect defense. I think he is almost all the time hitting the precise computer move. Yeah, here, okay, queen takes is not a big deal to see. I mean, this is quite clearly not the way. So queen takes. And now long castles. And wow, this is so dangerous. Yeah, rook d7 check coming. What is black's move now? Yeah, this is what he tried. And it's good. Again, it's a good defense. Rook f8 was an alternative. Here in the press conference, Svidler showed a cute line. Queen to g5. Rook f7. Rook h1. Rook f5. And now finally move queen to f6 to decide the issue.
Check.
Yeah, and white will win this ending very comfortably with an exchange up. Yeah, this was Caruana's choice. Doesn't look pretty, but it is a tougher defense than rook f8. Rook d7, rook f8, queen g4. Yeah, queen g4 is also right. Queen g5 is not as convincing as queen h5 is holding on. Queen g4 is better. Yeah? It also looks at both pawns here. Yeah, queen h6 check.
Check.
Only move. f4. And now black has no ways defending the piece. I mean, you cannot defend the piece anymore. The bishop is attacked. If you move it away, yeah, white is just taking here.
Check.
And here. Yeah, what is there? Yeah, maybe this move, we can check this, but here probably rook takes d8 is winning the house. Rook takes
check.
Check. Bishop b7. Black has no counter checks here and will lose against the e-pawn. I guess this is also just winning from a material point of view almost. Yeah, rook e8. Not beautiful, but it's the move that defends in the most stubborn way. This is what Caruana needs to do here. Note that he's fighting for his life in the event. If he's losing the game, he's almost out of it. Yeah, a -1 score after 7 rounds is not going to cut it. Rook takes b7, knight takes e5. This little trick is now possible. Queen h3, takes, bishop here, rook a7. So we got this ending. So Caruana avoided getting checkmated. That was the #1 priority. And there was such a strong attack, you could easily get checkmated. But his precise defense has prevented that. He has escaped into that ending that is probably lost against perfect play, but you still have to put up that perfect play. Let's look what happened in the next couple of moves. Like White activated his bishop there nicely. Trades here.
Check.
And basically the computer agrees with White with both sides play up to this point. After e4, White still retains a big advantage, but the engine points out that rook to b7 is stronger. The problem with this move is playing this move just couple of moves before the time control is that Black has a very clear counterplay with the g-pawn. This is what Svidler probably couldn't assess correctly. Like rook takes g4, and this is getting somewhat dangerous, this pawn. Especially if you look at the most normal moves after a4, king g7, Black is covering this, and now the g-pawn gets very dangerous. The computer, however, points out that e3 is a strong move. This is difficult to see.
Check.
Check now. And after king e2 here, White has excellent winning chances. The problem is not so much to see a move like e3 once it is on the board, but to judge rook b7 correctly. Yeah, you have a hard time to judge those little precise nuances when you have no time, and he was down to very little time. e4, however, as I said, it does not spoil the game. I mean, White still retains a big advantage, but rook b7, it seems, was stronger. e5.
Check.
Check here, king c4, going forward. Could also go to c2, but this is not a bad move. Knight e4, bishop to c6,
check,
and rook takes c3. Yeah, so White activated himself to the utmost. Yeah, rook e3 had to be played, covering that knight, and now king b6. Yeah, in this particular moment, probably Caruana had to play knight to c3. And this is getting him very close to a draw. After king c5,
check,
rook e5, king d4, there is the move rook to h5 that covers the bishop,
check,
by tactical means. Very difficult point to spot. So that was the cleanest. Oops. Knight c3 was probably the cleanest option, but he went c4. And after that, again, White can probably win now with a4.
check,
He played this move, but a4 probably wins. It's tough. It's really tough, but it should win. Yeah, for example, a check here.
check,
King to a5 or king to c7. King c7 probably. And now c3 is not working. So maybe back, and then the a-pawn can start to go. c3, however, probably not the most precise move. Maybe bishop b5. Still c3. Or king to d7 is also an option. Yeah, after that, rook c7 will probably stop the pawn. It's still complicated. It's very complicated, but
Check.
what's clear is after bishop d5, what Svidler played, after king h8, now he was down to very little what he could try. The relatively best now was probably to take on c4 now. And even here, after this, bishop moves, rook takes a4. He can try at least a little bit because the bishop is a lot stronger than the knight. The likelihood of a draw ever is very high, of course, now. Yeah, this is what he did. e6, c3, rook c7, g5. And now he decided to end the game by taking on e4. So, very disappointing result for Peter Svidler, who had a very good preparation, a very good idea in the opening, and got a fantastic position. But it's really important to understand how well Caruana defended this. He probably, was lost at more than 1 point, but he always kept it going and never really totally, broke down from the pressure. I think, for example, if I would have that position here after move, let's say move 19 or something like that, I will be checkmated. I'm totally sure. I would fall to some mate or some direct loss, which did not happen to him. He just continued to fight on. It was losing, yes, against perfect play, but it's difficult to do. So at the end, a draw. Very disappointing for Svidler, and it keeps Caruana in contention in this event. Okay, let's look at Nakamura Topalov, the game between the two tail-enders. They both are on... Are they both? No, Nakamura is on -2. Topalov is on -3. No, -2 as well. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm getting confused there. Anyway, both are almost out of it. I mean, if you want to, if you are a super optimistic person, you can say, okay, if this game has a winner, the winner still has some options if they can continue with another win to get back to 50%. So this it's not a game where a draw is a serious option. Okay, we've got a Slav and this line. Yeah, Topalov is still very much intent, it seems, of playing very solid openings here with black. I know, okay, he tried this h4 against Giri in the round before, but here he is back again with a very solid black opening here in the Slav. Bishop f5, yeah, this is the old main line there. Nowadays a6 is seen quite often, but bishop f5, of course, is happening quite often. Knight c3 goes e6, again a6 is the fashion nowadays. One point of this move, of this a6 move, is that after e6, white goes knight h4, and after a6, the move knight h4 is not as is not as pointed, as black has additional options. For example, he can play to e6, which he could not do before. I'm not saying that this is brilliant, but he gets additional ideas there. e6, however, played by Topalov, knight h4, and bishop g6. This is again the most solid move. This is a bit sharper, provoking the move f3. Yeah, white often goes f3, bishop g6 back, and from here there are many options. Queen b3, knight g6 immediately. Okay, this was played. Takes, rook b1. Yeah, rook b1 is interesting. And Nakamura plays an idea that was introduced by his opponent, by Topalov, in the 2006 World Championship match, Topalov-Kramnik, the toilet gate match. And rook b1 is an interesting move. It tries to prepare a setup that you could call a big expansion setup. What white wants to do is he wants to play c5, b4, b5, maybe f4. Yeah, just push all his pawns and trying to crush black by pure space advantage. Knight bd7 by Topalov, and c5. That is the point. Rook b1 is needed, so that after a move like b6, wasn't played here, but after that b4 is possible, and white is ready to support here with b4. After a5 he has a3. Yeah. Topalov went a5, a3, and now bishop e7, just developing normally. Yeah, g3 now, played by Nakamura. This is doing two things. It prepares the fianchetto, but it also stabilizes the king side a little bit, and in some cases prepares the move f4. f4 is also a move here, but after b6, this is probably a little bit earlier. Black also has an idea to play this, yeah, with this idea, or bishop h4. This is also why g3 makes some sense. It prepares ideas like f4. Yeah, e5 now by Topalov, expanding in the center, bishop g2, and now e4. Yeah, gaining space. This is a sharp move. He also could have taken on d4 and played this position. However, it's certainly not bad for white to have that bishop out in the open. So I understand why e4 was played. At least it makes the bishop on c1 look a little bit stupid. b4. Knight f8, that knight gets a regrouping. b5. And note that white is not castling. Knight e6, bishop d2. Yeah, white is still not castling. Yeah, if he would have done so, he was probably afraid that some knight g5, queen d7 is coming. There is no need yet to castle, so I understand why he didn't. Okay, bishop d2. And now black castled. Now very ambitious play by Nakamura, knight to a4. Yeah, the knight intends to go to b6 and also makes way, in some cases, for the rook to come to b6. Yeah, knight g5. This is very provocative play now by Topalov. He basically says, okay, you know, I go to g5, and if you play h4, I'm going to sacrifice that pawn on f3. Or at least, yeah, I'm going to play knight f3 and make a whole mess of this position. And this is what happened. h4,
check.
Knight f3, check. So, okay, white has to take it. No question there. And now we see the first point of this. The white queen cannot capture the pawn because the knight on a4 is quite clearly offside. So, what to do? The most obvious thing to do is what Nakamura did. He took on c6 and went back to c3. Basically saying, okay, that's all nice what you did, but I'm going to get that pawn. What is your big point? And now we see Topalov's a big point, and I think this is really an absolutely fantastic decision. He sometimes, yeah, how do you call it? He sometimes plays a little bit too dynamically, Topalov does, and it blows up in his face, but there are moments in the games where he really finds a solution that I really believe that almost no player would come up with, and this is one of those. Black now played the, for me, absolutely shocking move, bishop takes c5. Takes on c5, sacrificing a bishop. Yeah, what is the point there? I mean, this is really interesting. Of course, white takes the piece. I mean, you can, I mean, if you are maybe the most boring player ever, you can think, oh, I'm scared, I'll take this. But, well, Nakamura needs to win the game, so he takes the piece. And it is not clear-cut at all, but I think the idea here by Topalov is really fantastic, that he spotted that he has compensation here for his piece. You can argue if it is absolutely full compensation, but the practical chances are exceptionally good. Okay, d4. That was the point. Now attacking the knight on c3. White has no alternative. Now he has to take that pawn. The knight has no good squares anyway. Something like knight a4, d4 is a This is a complete disaster. Yeah, and things like that. It's not going to work. So white has to take on d4. Yeah, he actually has a choice. I think he probably played it right by taking on d4 with the queen, even though rook e8 was also an interesting move. Yeah, just checking. Yeah, king f1 is not great after queen d4, especially rook d8 is an awful threat now. It's quite funny. The computer gives now as the main line bishop to e1, and now this is the computer's answer. You're just playing a rook down, but the situation is for white is really awkward. Yeah, queen c1. There is no other squares that cover the knight, and then knight to g4. Rook b2. Is that the end of black's play? No. It's nice, right? Rook takes has to be played.
Check. Check.
And I know it looks funny, but this is ending in a draw. Yeah, black can try all kinds of things here, but it will end in a draw.
Check.
White can dodge all those bullets, and ultimately
check.
It will be
Check.
a perpetual check. Very funny line. But rook e8, bishop e3 is probably stronger. And after rook a3, rook b3, this is probably not quite enough. I mean, black here again has some play, but knight d1 seems to consolidate for white. It's not totally clear-cut again, but in comparison, I think Topalov's choice in the game by just taking on d4 is probably better. Okay, castles. And this is the thing. He gave up the piece, Topalov did, for just a pawn, and he did foresee, obviously, that even after white castling, and white managed to castle now, he has a very serious compensation. And one point is, of course, this move. Black wants to be ready to deliver that checkmate. So the white queen is basically tied to that f3 pawn. He always the queen always has to be ready to take on f3 in case of black playing queen h3. And this makes the whole white setup somewhat awkward. Rook e1, intending rook e3 as a good move. Rook d8 and rook b2. There are no big alternatives there. White has to cover that d2 bishop and rook d4, activating the rook, potentially doubling, but also sometimes using the rook on the fourth rank. Rook e7, active play by Nakamura. The more obvious move is probably rook to e3, but it's ultimately probably not leading to that much. After rook d8, knight b1, this is the line that Stockfish gives. We get to some rook ending. Where white wins that pawn, but very likely black is active enough to hold the draw. Yeah, this is something you can analyze deeper if you like, but I don't know how relevant it is to the game. This is already on move 6 or 7 from the game position, and it's very tough to decide on that. And I mean, white can keep the piece for the moment, and why not do that? Rook e7 is an interesting move, intending queen to b3. Yeah, rook d8, doubling, queen b3, and now very cool play by Topalov. He just goes rook to f8, yeah, going to that passive-looking square. But okay, f7 was hanging, and it seems that it's not a big problem for black, because after white has gained that short momentum with the threat on f7, he now has to think again about this idea. So queen d1 has to be played. White has to go back to help in the defense. it's really cool, I think, that black has compensation here in the form of this active pieces. So fantastic judgment by Topalov with this capture on c5. Really, I'm totally amazed by that concept, that he judged that correctly. It really seems that it's a kind of very dynamic equilibrium that we have here. Okay, what happened? Queen to b3 again. Yeah, a repetition. But now knight d1 was played by Nakamura. He definitely does not want to draw here. And now we come to critical moments of the game. This was played by Topalov, very logical looking move. It attacks the rook on e7. It closes that diagonal. It looks at the e3 square. Probably still not the best move. It seems that queen f5, the computer suggestion, was a decent alternative. The idea is to still have that queen active there, and sometimes have also, oops, that was wrongly painted, have the knight there instead of d5. Rook d8 is also an idea once the knight has moved. Yeah, this is what the computer gives here. Rook e3, rook to d8, rook f3, queen c5, and black will get a piece back. And he's, at least equal here. He played this, however. It's very difficult, this kind of situation. Rook e5. And here, Topalov is down to probably just one move that he has to play. And this is probably rook a8. This is what the engine gives after you let it calculate for quite a while. It's quite interesting to check that move. Rook a8. What is white's reply now? The point is that in some cases black is able to take on d2. For example, after this is going to save black. Yeah, the capture is made.
Checkmate.
And this is the threat. After king g1, check. There's a check. And again, this is going to be a draw. The problem is that white, here cannot stop this and this at the same time. Yeah, the knight has no good square. Also note that this check shouldn't be forgotten. In the game, Topalov played king to h7, again under time pressure. And the problem is that now after king h2, the move knight f4 is not leading anywhere. Or let's say this kind of move is not leading anywhere, because after king g1, knight e2, now this is stopped. So what exactly is black supposed to do after king h2? The problem is there is nothing anymore. Yeah, that move was just not right, and here Nakamura had managed to defend this successfully. Yeah, any other ideas for black? What he tried is the move knight to f6, but what else is there? One issue is, quite importantly, a quite important issue is that after f6, knight e3 is a good reply, attacking the queen, and after knight takes, rook takes, this is going to fall. Yeah, a bit of a tragic end to that game. I think Topalov's play was really strong, very interesting play, but this is the problem sometimes with such an ambitious and enterprising approach to the game. If you're not in 100% top shape, it can happen that you get into those do or die positions, make one mistake, and then you lose. And this is what happens to him in that event. Quite a bit. He stirs up the complications and then does not find, in the very critical moments, find the the best moves that keep him in the game or even wins him the game, as he could have done in round 1. Winning is I guess he was close to winning against Anand if he plays the right continuation. So what about this round? What is the main result, let's say, of the round? This win brings Nakamura back into at least glimmers of hope. -2 was completely disastrous. -1, at least you can imagine that something could happen. While Topalov is now on -3 and really is out of it. It was very difficult before anyway, but now it's there's no chances whatsoever. Another key game was Svidler not being able to beat Caruana, which means Caruana is still in the hunt, and Svidler with his -1 score is not looking too great. I hope you enjoyed the coverage of round 6. Round 7 coverage will also be on shortly. Thanks for watching.